imitate something like the Quran. Because you are the poets, you are the master orators, professionals. Imitate something like it. And if you can't do it yourself, go and help them who wants to do it. Seek help from others, support from others besides God, if you want to really compose something like it. Because you don't accept it, you don't accept it to be true, you doubt about it. But if you can't do it, and you'll never be able to do it, then fear the fire of hell, whose fuel is man and stones. So when the challenge was then put to them, no one could, because no one could imitate anything like it, and this challenge stands still today.
I wouldn't know what to say to that.
Okay, so what if I tell you there's one creator?
Yeah.
Do you believe me or would you negotiate?
Yeah, no, I believe there's one creator, yeah.
And who would that be?
That's God.
So then, if that is one person or three, according to you?
Well, there's one person, yeah.
Okay, then why you are not a Muslim?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Maybe you haven't heard much about Islam, that's probably why.
No, it's not common.
That could be it. Are you from Ireland?
Yeah, Belfast, yeah.
Belfast, yeah. Because I think you should know from history how Irish people had interaction with Muslims at one point later. How they were really in a good interaction.
Muslims sent the Irish aid during the famine when.
Really?
Yeah. They tried to send £10,000, but the Queen only sent 2,000, and she said you can't send more than me, so they sent £1,000. But yeah.
So we have a very long, as I know I'm a Muslim, so we have a long history of our cordial interactions with the Irish people.
Yeah.
The thing is, you see, if I was born in an African remote jungle, and I was the only one thinking about this world, I wouldn't know anything about, say, for example, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, things like all these different gods and goddesses, or even Isis, Venus, Osiris, Diana, Apollo, or even the Christian concept of Trinity, like three persons in one God. Because we would know critically that there is a creator, right? There is one who created everything. So that belief is something that we call as Muslims is a natural disposition that to recognize and be inclined to know and accept that there is one God. Exactly what you said. One God, one creator. But what happened is, as missionaries or evangelists or preachers, they came to Africa or other countries, they colonized the minds of the people. They wanted people to believe in what we say rather than critically think. But contrast this with Islam. Islam, we say, throughout human history, every community had their own oneness, telling them to believe in one creator, one God, and not to take any other gods besides this one and only true creator. Can there be more than one God anyway, if you think about it? Because the idea that there's more gods, father, son, family, husband, wife, brother, sister,
one God, one essence.
like this gentleman is saying, right? Three person and so on. You'd know that this belief is not something that's natural, number one. It's not something that you can derive by yourself, like, oh, God is a mother, uncle, and a sister. Would you ever come to that conclusion? You'd never. Likewise, you never would come to a conclusion by your own thinking about God, that He's a Father, Son, and something called another Holy Spirit, like in Trinity. Right? So Islam is a natural, internal disposition of everyone that we know through the Creator. So Islam was there always throughout human history. Those who believed and accepted those messengers, prophets and warners, they lived their life accordingly and they died. They were successful ones. They will go to what God has created them for, paradise or heaven, right? What they were following, this is what my friend when he asked, why aren't you a Muslim? They were following what we call the religion of submission. Submitting, surrendering yourself to the will of the Creator. Shouldn't we do that? Because He's the one who created us. Why shouldn't we listen to Him? So one who does that, the person who submits and surrenders their will to the will of the Creator is called a Muslim. So that's where the problem is today. People think it's it's an Arab religion, but it's not. It may be an Arabic word, but the concept is universal. Being a Muslim, following Islam is a universally acceptable concept. So when we're asking you as an Irish smart gentleman with critical thinking, you would know that we have to agree that there's nothing worthy of worship. No trees, no man, no kings and presidents, no one but the maker, creator, God of this cosmos, this universe. That is essentially what Islam is. So you wouldn't essentially disagree with that. What you don't know is, so you accept that there's nothing worthy of worship except the one and only true God. The second part, which is that Muhammad, upon him be peace, is a messenger of God, because you don't perhaps know about him. You know about Jesus, you've heard about Moses, yeah, from your religious, cultural upbringing, but you may not have heard about Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. You may have heard about him very briefly, but if I say, look, God, the same creator that you and I believe in, has been sending these prophets and warners throughout human history. So there were many of those prophets. Moses, Jesus, Noah, Abraham, David, they're all prophets of God. Respective times, people believed they were the ones who were successful. But in line with all these prophets and messengers, the same God that you and I believe in sent his final messenger, final prophet. Because mankind has come to a stage where you don't need prophets to come to every community, because we have become so small global community. The religion of God, the message of God can reach everyone quite easily. Previously, we were all isolated communities. People in African jungle, they could not access what's in Australia, for example. They had no means of communicating and going from one place to the other. The technology wasn't there. Later, navigation, equipment, boats, whatever, helped people to traverse around the world. So time came when people can all reach and achieve this message. So that's what is the distinction and different with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In line with all the other prophets, he is another prophet, but he's the last one. And being the last one, God, the same God, he made him a messenger with proof and evidence. Now, why should we believe in someone just because someone claims that he's a prophet of God? We need to be sure about it. We need to be convinced that he is a prophet of God. During the time of Moses, people need to know that he is a prophet of God, rather than following him like, oh, anyone who claims. Yeah? Pharaoh claimed he was God at that time. He was the Most High. But of course, when Moses came and demonstrated to him, of course you're not. You die just like you live. You were born, you began your life, you will die. So God doesn't die. So Prophet Muhammad ﷺ came, as you expect, with proof and evidence. And his self-evident proof, which is continuously accessible to us, is this book we call the Quran. Have you heard about it? Yeah. The Quran tells us who God is, who we are, our relationship, what we're doing here, what's going to happen when we die, and where we're going to end up, heaven or hell, and all that we need to do to save ourselves from the hellfire punishment, and how to go to heaven, the place of reward, by following God's will that he wants us to live accordingly. So that's the message, but it comes with proof and evidence. Because that's what you expect. Why would you believe in something without any evidence? So the Quran offers multiple layers of evidence. It's from God, and that at the same time makes him the prophet of God. Do you know, for 40 years of Prophet Muhammad's life, he was known to his people as As-Sadiq al-Amin, the truthful one and the trustworthy one. They never heard him lying or making things which are saying things which are untrue. Always reliable and trustworthy. Historically documented. So at the age of 40, when God chose him to be a prophet, not him, no one makes them a prophet. Prophethood is not a right, it's a privilege from God. God makes prophets who he chooses to make prophets, right? So when he came with this message from God, he called the people. There's a customary that when something very important, just like, you know, back in our times, in your country as well, they would ring the church bell at the middle of a day or something, people will all run towards them. What's going on? Because that's the way to attract people's attention. Yeah, something important is happening. Now we will all gather together and find out why. So the Arabs at that time had a particular way of dealing with that. Also, like go to a mountain like As-Safa and others, small hills and so too. Go on top of that and shout, Ya Sabaha, something like this. Because from the top of a mountain, your voice will project towards the community. So they will leave everything. Something important, someone's making an announcement. Because tribal societies are always on the lookout for enemy invasion. And this is how one way of warning others. Maybe there is. So they all came when you was calling them. He says, what's the matter? Why have you collected us here, called us here? He said, if I told you there's an army behind the mountain waiting to attack you, would you believe? They all said, yes, of course we would believe you. You've never lied. We've always known you to be a truthful person. So he made them attest to his trustworthiness and truthfulness first. And then he said, I invite you to leave your worship of the idols, which they were doing. They were worshipping idols everywhere. In fact, it's like every 3 degrees of the 360-degree globe, they had an idol for it. He says, leave and abandon the worship of idols and come back to the worship of one true God. Because his society immersed in idol worship and in polytheism. So this was an important call from God to resurrect them from their depth of polytheistic belief system, to bring them back to monotheism. Every prophet in their own community, they started with this, to bring them back to God, to worship God. So he invited them, abandon and reject all these false gods and worship one God. You know what they did? He says, perish you we. Why have you brought us here to abandon our gods? So this is how the initial reaction started. So from then he started calling people again, because now people became very hostile, because they realized by abandoning the gods, it's going to impact their social status, economic living, and so on. Because by having an idol, what it means is people from Syria, people from Yemen, from other countries, from different places would come here and they will do pilgrimage to these idols, pay homage and bring gifts, food and money, wealth. Just like you see today, people go to a temple and whatever, and they do lots of donations. Now maybe a forceful donations in one way. So that's how they were thriving in their economic life, by having all this money coming in by idol worship. So they realized by abandoning all of them, the economy collapses. They didn't think that why should I continue worshipping an idol that I crafted with my own hand? Because they were thinking about money. Money is their God rather than God who created them. So he started calling them, and as he called them with the Quran, that itself was the very first miracle to them as an evidence against them and a proof for his call. He came with the Quran, which they knew that this particular individual, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it means may God's peace and blessings be on him, he didn't know how to read or write. He was called someone who's an unlettered person, historically accepted by them, because he didn't go how to read to learn about it or how to write. And now he's saying, he's composing to them a form of speech that goes beyond their norms of poetry and prose and so on. Because there were one thing they were doing, actually 2 things, correction. They were being proud of their culture in 2 important things. Do you know what they are? Any guess? Okay. Number 1, the composition of poetry. They liked poetry. They lived poetry. They died poetry. You know that saying, living and dying. What it means is they expressed themselves in these poetical words in such a way, these emotions and feelings they express, it's really unparalleled. If they were, to give you an example, if you read their poetry, if they were describing a woman, and they did in their poetries, how beautiful, how attractive she is, how loving, and you'd fall in love with her by reading that poetry. That's how they will really navigate your emotions. If they were describing about something of the past, which is something disaster happened or something like this, tears will overflow from your eyes because you will feel so much sadness by listening to their poetry. If they talk to you about something about enemies that did something that to you, and they, in their poetry, it will motivate you to such an anger, you'll be saying, let me now start ready, collect my arms and go and fight them. That was the effect of their poetry. So when a good composition they made about their poetry, they would rejoice. They would hang this poem in the wall of the Kaaba. You know the Kaaba in Saudi Arabia where people make pilgrimage? So this pilgrimage in Hajj is one of the pillars of Islam, out of the 5 pillars. So they would make pilgrimage. So they would hang it on the wall of the Kaaba, as if like we've got this poetry. The second thing that they rejoiced was birth of a son, male child, because they can continue their legacy, their honor, their lineage, and so on. But they frowned upon birth of a female child. They will all become black in sadness and so on. Like, what am I going to do now? Now I have to make her grow up and then marry her off to some other person. Economic liability. That's how they felt. So they became so accustomed in a very heinous crime, a social norm, which was taking the living daughter alive, going away and burying her alive. That was one of the customs. Quite a few people were doing this. So Islam, of course, came to totally dismantle all of that, saying, for what crime did you bury her? She was killed. Yeah. So they rejoiced the birth of a male child and a composition of poetry. So we know now that the culture is that they were very good orators, poets. And they knew Prophet Muhammad didn't know how to read or write, didn't compose any poetry. For 40 years, they knew in their own little community, inside out, the people, who's doing what, who behaves in what way. So he never composed poetry, learned poetry, and now he's coming up with the Quran. When they heard about it, they're saying, what is this? It's not like any of the poetry that we know of, or we can compose. It's something that is so sweet, something that so much resonates. But yet it's not poetry, not prose. What is it? So when they were asked, why don't you believe in this is a revelation from God? Their only excuse was, oh, this is magic. You're bringing magic, because they couldn't explain rationally what this could be. So what is so special about the Quran? It's the way it is composed in a language of their time, and yet it's brought a revelation of the language where it went against their norms of linguistic convention. So when the Quran says, if you are doubtful as to what God has revealed to his Prophet Muhammad that it's not from God a revelation, simply imitate something like the Quran, because you are the poets, you are the master orators, professionals. Imitate something like it. And if you can't do it yourself, go and help them who wants to do it. Seek help from others, support from others besides God, if you want to really compose something like it, because you don't accept it, you don't accept it true, you doubt about it. But if you can't do it, and you'll never be able to do it, then fear the fire of hell, whose fuel is mud and stones. So when the challenge was then put to them, no one could, because no one could imitate anything like it, and this challenge stands still today. The Quran challenges people to bring an imitated chapter. The smallest chapter, you'll be surprised, it's like about 3 lines. Small 3 lines. 3 lines. If you can't do the whole book, imitation, or 10 chapters, do 1 chapter. In the internet, what you'll find, people don't even understand the message. They have lots of, oh, there you go, imitate. At that time, historically, they all failed to bring. Now people even don't know Arabic language. They can be up, oh, there you go, we've imitated it. not realizing the Quranic challenge is فَأْتُوا بِسُورَةٍ مِّن مِثْلِهِ, meaning bring something like it. If I give you an example, what do I have? Oh, a phone maybe, okay, right. Imitate a phone like that. And you brought as an imitation this. Would it be like it? It's not, obviously. Because it is a square shape with a particular color and so on. And this is white, this is greenish. It's not like it. So all the Quran wants from people is for them to demonstrate the Quran is not from God by imitating like the composition of the Quran. So it needs to be in Arabic, in the stylistics of Arabic, in the rhetoric of Arabic, in the very delivery and the genre that speaks in Arabic. Yeah? And of course it needs to be acceptable. None of the attempts you'll find on the internet that we hear addresses those points. People bring in English, in Bengali, and others, not realizing what the challenge is. So this is a living testimony of why the Quran, as it claims, is from God, so that people can accept and understand it. But you're not an Arab. You're Irish. You might not know, but I don't know how to imitate it. So how am I going to test it? The Quran offers other layers of falsification. If this book, the Quran says, if it was from other than God, you would find within it many discrepancies, inconsistencies, errors, contradictions. Oh, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because if a book was from God, right, it described the historical past, talks about the future, describes about the natural world, natural phenomena. 1400 years ago, it is very likely that they will get things wrong. People knew at that time, scientifically, the earth was flat, didn't revolve, geocentric model, didn't expand, the universe wasn't expanding. So many things like that. We know now it was their false scientific belief. Likewise, their very notions about the historical past, how the nations in history were, we now have unearthed and then known that they got many things wrong over history. Like the Bible says, for example, at the time of a particular prophet called Moses, the people who were governing were called pharaohs, which is correct. Historically now, we can trace that. But what the Bible doesn't get right, I'm just giving as an example, not picking up, that at the time of Prophet Joseph, the monarchs, the people in power and authority, they're not called pharaohs. The Bible says they were pharaohs because the designation pharaoh came much later. They were called kings. Quran talks about this in this exact terminology. King rather than pharaoh. King rather than pharaoh. So now we know historically people didn't know about these things. But how does the Quran know about it? That's the question. How does the Quran know about the accurate details of ancient history? So when we look at the Quranic falsification test, if it wasn't from God, then you can pinpoint errors and discrepancies and inconsistencies. No one can find any. People bring and we can demonstrate how it's their mistaken understanding. So this is a layer of falsification where you can actually test the Quran and falsify if it's not from God. But if you cannot falsify it this way, when it's very likely that the Quran, if it wasn't from God, would contain all these errors of science, of history, if it prophesies something of the future. Let me give you one example. It talks about how the Romans were defeated at that time. There were fighting happening between Romans and the Persians. Two superpowers of the day. Two superpowers. The Byzantine Empire and the Persian Empire. The Romans were defeated in the succession of all these battles. But the Quran says, but in a few years' time, between 3 and 9 years, they will regain victory again. So it put a time frame. Imagine a prophet in Arabia prophesying about the outcome of what will happen between two superpowers in a time. You can't make a guess like this within the time frame. And it's exactly happened. When there was all possibility that would have ended up wrong, that the Romans continuously were defeated, or they regained victory the next year, or 15 years later, the prophecy of the Quran, which people read every day. Chapter 30 of the Quran, Surah Ar-Rum. Ghulibatur Rum, the Quran says, and then it continues. So it would have been proven wrong by Muslims and by non-Muslims, saying historically this is wrong. But this is exactly what happened. So how does the Quran know about these things? So these are examples to illustrate why Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, as he claimed to be a prophet, is an evidence for his prophethood. He brings evidence from information that he gives to people, because you can check this information for consistency, for accuracy, and you can verify it. And that's exactly with two examples I've given you out of so many we could. I don't want to bore you with it, just to illustrate to you that demonstrates his prophethood. So this is what we invite you to, because you're already a believer in God, one God. You accept him as God. We're asking you to come completely to the submission of God, because you already accept that we should submit to God. But to submit to God is to submit to what God has told us to submit to through his will. And his will that we should submit to is expressed only through prophets and messengers. Yeah? And that is Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, who brought the Quran, who told us how to live our life, how to be kind, charitable. Many of this you're familiar with, because previous prophets and messengers, they brought the same kind of moral teachings. Okay? Do not cheat, do not lie, do not rape, do not oppress, do not commit transgression, do not commit evil in this world, and so on. Many of this we're familiar with, but of course there are additional laws which arises due to societal change and societal modification in time. So the Quran has many other laws to deal with how to live a life in modern context, for example, not 4,000 years ago. Yeah. So the only way to fully submit to God is to accept Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So my invitation, what's your name?
Jack.
Jack, my invitation, my name is Mansur, is for you to explore the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in his teaching, and explore what the Quran has to say to you, and then if you can verify it, that it is from God, he is a messenger of God, then accept Islam, become Muslim, live your life as a Muslim, then you will have the assurance, the promise of God, the reward, the joy, the bliss, the tranquility, the happiness that awaits us in hereafter, in paradise, in heaven, in Jannah, and saving ourselves from the fire of hell.
You've told me about my ignorance. It's something I've really never thought about, to be fair. Yeah. So it's really interesting to hear. Thank you for telling me.
I really hope that you start reading about the Quran. And this is a month of Ramadan, as you know. People are fasting and they're listening to the Quran in the evening and night time. The whole Quran is being recited in various countries of the world, including UK, from beginning to end, from memory. So this is another layer for you to think, how did Muslims preserve their book from corruption? Is by memorizing the whole book, letter for letter, word for word, sound for sound.
Recitals, it's really impressive.
Sound for sound. Yeah. So as you read the Quran, listen to it, and at the same time read the translation. Then it will resonate within you, because the Quran is from God, and it will manifest itself as from God when it addresses human beings and the human psyche. Because who knows us more? God. Better than ourselves, because he created us. He knows our nature. So we really invite you to become a Muslim, because you're a man of integrity and critical thinking. You've heard about something that I've talked to you about Islam, about Prophet Muhammad. The Quran that he brought from the angel of revelation, because God sends prophets and messengers with books through angel of revelation. So we believe in the angels. We believe in the prophets that were sent beforehand. We believe in the books that they received, some of them. We believed in the day after resurrection. Yeah? We believe in the hereafter. So these are articles of faith that we describe, and the pillars of Islam, you would know, is the first pillar is the declaration of faith, that there is no God worthy of worship except God. Okay? This is how you enter into Islam, become a Muslim. Then you pray ritual prayers 5 times a day. Out of all 24 hours, only a few minutes of our life to come back to God and stand in front of God to communicate with Him. And then we fast in the month of Ramadan like we're doing this month. We give charity. Our surplus wealth, 2.5%, we give it to the poor and the needy. It's their right on our wealth, because our wealth comes from God. The provision comes from God. And we fear evil physically and economically, financially, then we do the pilgrimage once in a lifetime in Mecca. 5 pillars in Islam. That is what Islam is. Simple, practical, beautiful, acceptable. We invite you to become a Muslim.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for your knowledge.
Do you have any questions?
No, wow, it's a lot to think about. Yeah, it is. But no, thank you for telling me. Yeah.
Appreciate it. Would you like a free copy of the Quran if you have one? I can give you a copy of the Quran, or if you want digital, or which I can try to.
You can get it online, can't you?
Yeah, online. Yeah? Okay. So he's going to come back because he's going to be around a little bit. Hopefully. A copy of the Quran. You can have your own personal copy, but online is available.
Okay,
and the recitation is, as I said, importantly, listen to the Quran. Okay. Because when you hear it, it will talk to you inside you, and that's how you feel. Even if you don't understand anything of Arabic, you will feel the effect of these words of our Creator. Because that's one of the layers, as well as a demonstration of the message is from God. It's a divine signature within itself. You know, when we have labels, people wear like our shoes, our coats, everything, they have branding. Why? To make sure people understand who's it made by. The Quran has its own divine signature, so that people can appreciate and know and be convinced and sure about that this is from God. So when you listen to it, you immediately know it cannot be just from a poet and so on and so forth. It's far, far more from that, because it changes you even if you don't know the meaning. You'll be surprised that the Quran that we talked about being recited in the mosques at night time, in this 29, 30 days, all of it, many of the reciters, they don't even know the meaning. They've memorized it all. They don't even know Arabic, what it says, but they were able to recite exactly verbatim. So this is the beauty. This is how the Quran itself says, وَلَقَدْ يَسَّرْنَا الْقُرْآنَ لِلذِّكْرِ فَهَلْ مِن مُدَّكِرٍ. That we've made Quran easy to remember. Would you not take heed?
Yeah, very good. It's impressive to learn some new language you didn't understand. I didn't know that.
It's just that we don't have the opportunity to convey the message of Islam. People don't know about it. People often think, oh, I was born in a Catholic family, Irish family. That's it, that's my religion. The Quran reprimands people. Are you going to stick to the belief of your fathers and your forefathers, even when they're wrong? Imagine those people who worship idols, and they're saying, why do you ask us to abandon the faith of our forefathers? Culturally, we've been brought up with this religion. The Quran says, are you going to stick and follow the religion, even if they're wrong? Clearly, worshipping idols and so on. So Quran makes us think critically, so that we can believe by informed choice, not by blind faith. All the prophets and messengers they came to bring this out from the people, to understand and to accept it, not just simply blindly believe. Because you can read Harry Potter and say, that's it, this is the book of God. Emotionally moved because changed their life. Emotional experience cannot be the arbiter. It has to be intellect driving the choice. When you go to a restaurant or a place to eat or buy your clothes, you make sure it's good food, good clothes, textile is better, and so on. We compare. Do you work or study?
Work, yes.
When you've chosen your job, you've compared from others. Does it pay good salary? Is it good working environment there? Is it easy to reach from where am I, or is it like 500 miles away? You compare, you contrast, and then you make an informed choice. That's what we do with everyday life. We make informed choice by looking, assessing, and then saying, that's the best job for me. And we always, many people, constantly look for a better opportunity in life, a better job, for example. Yeah? So why are we not doing this when it comes to religion? When it comes to the very permanent life in hereafter, heaven or hell, why are we just sitting there with our belief and saying, I'm happy with that. I'm happy with what I believe, when it could all be a false belief, culturally inherited. So we should really think and assess, if I believed in 3-in-1 God like the Christians believe, or if I believe in 2 gods like some of the Zoroastrians believe, God of good, God of evil, if I believed in many gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, Krishna, like the Hindus, Sanatans believe, is that the correct belief to believe in the first place? Do you know one of the things the Quran does to make people critically think about polytheistic belief is totally unacceptable? It gives us practical examples, logical arguments. Thank you. Some brief leaflets about,
Thank you very much.
yeah, and the copy of the Quran in English.
Thank you very much. Thank you
Yeah.
very much. Very kind.
So the Quran says, we're a car, same car, two driving wheels, two independent, left and right. You're on the right, I'm on the left, right? I have the same, just like how we learn to drive in our car by driving instructor. He has brakes and so on and so forth, right? So imagine two sets of control on the left and the right. One car. You want to take the car this way, and I want to take the car that way. And I'm independent in my thinking. I want to do what I want to do. Where's the car going to go? It's not going to go.
Yeah.
It's not going to go both ways, is it? Right? So if there are more than one God, each absolute in their will, there will be chaos and corruption like that. One God says, now I want rain at 5 p.m. today in UK Speaker's Corner. Other God says, no, I want no rain. What's going to happen? It can't be both. So this is how Quran gives us logical arguments to really understand that polytheism, believing in more than one God, is not acceptable. Yeah. So as you read the Quran, you discover more and more of this logic, more and more of this argument to solidify our belief in Islam, the Islam that we may have not accustomed to know about it because we were brought in an Irish family, for example. So the more you read, the more you learn, you will realize that makes sense. So when it makes sense, that's the point you'd say, I'm ready to submit to God. Because I don't want to die in a state of not accepting that God is my creator, the one I should worship. I should do that. Because to be saved from the hellfire, there's a key. That key is the declaration, not just a recognition in your heart that you should believe God is only one worthy of worship, but also the declaration that I declare you indeed are the only one worthy of worship and none else. Once you declare this, you become in the fold of Islam. And then if you die on that state, whoever dies that, paradise is guaranteed and promised for them. That's what you should be doing. That's what we all should be doing. Making a firm conviction in the heart and that belief, but declaring it. And that's why when we say to become a Muslim is what you have to do before you die. But we don't know when we're going to die. Do you know you're going to live for another 25, 30, 50 years? I might fall dead the next minute as I'm speaking. No one has that guarantee. But we must make sure that we don't waste our life and opportunity. We don't waste our eternal abode by simply wasting away in our negligence, not accepting and submitting to God. We have to really, before our death comes to us, accept our God and submit to Him. The next step will follow later. Once we declare, then we submit with our limbs how we pray and fast and say good words and so on. This comes later. But initial belief and declaration is very, very important and crucial. So think about it, that there is not time that, maybe when I'm old, then I'll think, no, start thinking now. Okay?
Thank you very much.
All the best.
I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Thank you.
وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين. May Allah accept this gentleman, very intelligent, very smart, very critical thinking, so that he can come to the fold of Islam with this critical thinking, with this informed choice. وآخر دعوانا الحمد لله رب العالمين.